Today we're going to be looking at body positioning. It's the core skill that ties all other skills together, which means if you're doing this wrong, everything else will be wrong. Okay. Body positioning is the most important thing to get right. Nailing it unlocks levels of control, grip, and speed that just aren't consistently possible with poor form. The flip side of that coin is that poor body positioning gets you into so much trouble without you even realizing it. Getting bucked out of control, washing out the front end, going over the bars on a drop, even just going offline. The cause, more often than not, is bad body positioning. No great riders have exactly the same body position, which is why, with experience, you can always recognize riders by the way they look on the bike, regardless of the kit they're wearing. That means there are many variations of body positioning that work well, but there are a few key things that all great riders do. Right, let's get one thing out of the way first. There is no one physical body position for me to teach you. You don't just assume attack position and then squid your way down the trail like a mannequin with a death wish. Attack position! You may laugh, but I have genuinely seen people doing this. Body positioning is a fluid and dynamic thing that is always changing depending on what you are riding, making it difficult to put into words. We'll try though. I'm sure most of you are well versed in the traditional tips of eyes up, elbows out, knees bent, heels down, weight centered that are commonly used. These are all great and remain relevant for beginners all the way through to advanced riders. I like to go through these points to make sure that we're all on the same page and also discard a few misconceptions. Keeping your eyes up refers to looking ahead to read the terrain before you're knee deep in the action. It's really important as you have to give your brain time to process what it's seeing so you can make decisions on where you're going and what you're doing. How far ahead is related to speed, but it's something we'll tackle in detail in a later vid. Elbows out is an interesting one as a beginner encourages riders to lower the center of gravity and bring their weight centered. There are arguments that there's also a biomechanical advantage for strength and manipulating the bike, but I know some excellent riders who have their elbows in and it doesn't seem to hold them back. I say let your elbows sit where they feel comfortable and worry more about the important things. How much bend depends on the situation and the terrain. As a default, I use just a little bit of a bend and then go further when I'm being more aggressive or trying to be aerodynamic. Or dodging branches, because I'm a big long unit. Knees slightly bent allows you to easily absorb any bumps and maintain efficiency. I see so many people with really bent legs hovering over the back wheel with what must be an unhealthy amount of lactic acid in their thighs. It's like running your suspension at 50% sag. What waste? Don't do that. The straighter your legs are, the more efficient they are. Running them straighter more often will save you a lot of energy. The key thing is to only bend them when you need to, like when the track is steeper or you're absorbing features. Fully locking them out is actually a good trick to give the pins a rest mid-descent, but only do that when it is safe to do so. I do it a lot and maybe don't recommend you do it all the time. I've heard some people mentioning that they purposefully bow their legs out. Don't do that. You're just putting your legs into a weaker position for no real benefit. And equally, don't hug the knees into your seat and top tube. Keep them in line with your feet by default and move them in or out to balance, or when allowing the bike to move as needed. Heels down is an important one for flat pedal riders. It helps keep the feet planted on the pedals through rough ground by keeping the forces acting on your foot perpendicular to the pedal. Nothing is worse than the dreaded foot bounce or pedal flip and then duck footing your way down the next section of track on your heels. Dropping the heels benefits all pedal types by giving a bit of suspension from the pivot of your ankle, helping to smooth things out. I see a lot of people stressing about this tip as biomechanically they physically can't move their heels lower than their toes once they're in a good central body position without feeling like their hamstrings are just going to snap like an elastic band. Don't worry, If you look closely, most riders' back feet don't actually have the heel down. The key thing here is that your calf is relaxed, allowing your ankle to pivot to absorb bumps and keep your heels planted on the pedals. I'm a bit of a unicorn with mega flexy calves. Well, you gotta be good at something. Weight centered is a trickier one to define, but the reasons why are simple. The tires on your bike grip thanks to weight going down through the bike and into your rubber of choice. When your weight is centered between them, grip is evenly spread between the two wheels, which is good for cornering and braking. Due to the way our bodies and bikes are shaped, it's rare for people to have their center of gravity forward of center, but it's very common for people to have it too far back. When you lean back and put your center of gravity behind the bottom bracket, you have to grip on tight to the bars to stop you falling off the back. If you never get back to that magical center position, you can never relax that grip. The trick I use is to find a centered position is focusing on finding a gentle weight in my palms. I relax my grip on the bars and slowly creep forward until I feel my palms pressing lightly down into the grips. That means my center of gravity is in front of the bottom bracket, which is around about the center. Watch you don't let your knees bend and creep forward as you're doing this. Make sure you keep them just with a small amount of bend and hinge forward at the hips. Other riders use sticking their elbows out and getting the head over the bars to achieve this, just whatever works for you. I've heard some people say to get your hips over the bottom bracket. If you can successfully tell where your hips are in relation to your BB when riding, then congratulations. I certainly can't because I don't have eyes in my butt, but you know, whatever works for you. So those are the generally accepted basics of body position. So far, so simple. But as things get more advanced in terms of speed and technicality, one of the above points becomes way more important than the rest. Any guesses? That's right. Weight distribution is so important, and this video has just been an elaborate setup to talk about it. So, being centered in the bike is simply trying to put your center of gravity right in the middle of the two wheels. You absolutely 100% do not want to do this all of the time. This should just be your default position, which you start in, then adjust depending on what's happening on the trail you're riding. When you set off down a trail, you should be there. When you need the front tire to grip, you should be there. When you recover from a steep section, you know where you recover to? It's right, slap, bang, in the middle. I describe this as being like a tennis player, always returning to center court after each shot so they are ready for whatever the opponent hits next. Being an egotistical YouTube weapon, I had to come up with a name for this way of thinking about body position. For your consideration, the boss stance. Trademark, it's trademarked. So hopefully this default position is starting to not only come together in your head, but make real sense. I'll add one more thing to this pile of things I've already mentioned. Once you've got into this position and you got it dialed, relax. Loosen the grip on the bars, switch off those stiff muscles and just get comfy and centered. Sure, when stuff gets real, you need to hold on tight, shift your body weight and do what needs to be done, but always come back to this default position and chill. So many riders don't. They just stay tense and rigid and end up diamond hard mess of fatigued and cramping muscles at the bottom. The boss stance works an absolute treat on flatter trails, and although things will always be dynamically moving and changing as technique for corners, braking, lumps and bumps are applied, the core aspects are still there. Looking ahead, small bend in the knees, calves relaxed, light pressure in the palms, staying loose. Wait. This is an advanced body position video, isn't it? Show us the good stuff. Show us what body positions you use in the proper gnarly. What's the secret? There is no secret. There's none. Seriously, advanced versions of most techniques are just doing the same basic techniques, but faster and on gnarlier terrain. There's no magic technique here. The hardest thing is just doing the basic techniques, even when your brain is saying, screw that. Let's quickly mention the main situations where you don't actually need your weight centered. nasty holes, really rough straights, square edges, drops and jumps. These are all situations where you want your front end actually unweighted to varying degrees. I'm not going to go into detail about these situations, otherwise we're going to be here all day. Probably are going to be here all day anyway. Don't worry, future vids will cover these things. I'm going to go ahead and assume everybody knows that when you ride steep sections of trail, you shift your weight back. I'm pretty sure everyone's heard that. Yeah, lean back, lean back.
Lean back.
Yeah, just lean back.
Whoa. Lean back.
Yeah, we all know that. Wrong. When riding steeper sections of trail, you actually pitch your bike down by straightening your arms and bending your legs. But your weight should still be pretty close to centered over the bike. If you are braking on this steep section, then yes, you will have to shift your weight back a bit for those braking forces. The most common mistake I see with body positioning is people creeping into a seemingly safe, comfortable, defensive position with the bum behind the seat and the hands just tugging on the bars just a little bit. It's not their fault. At some point they've gone over the bars and the brain has gone, well, screw that, ain't gonna do that again, time to lean back. I call this defensive position passenger mode because once you're in it, you're just along for the ride. This is where there is a strong correlation between confidence and body position. I know when I'm not feeling confident, I can feel my weight creeping back. And I've got to really battle with myself to keep things centered. You'll know when it's happening because it feels like the bike is just running away from you and it's hard to stay on line. The issue is usually not because of your arms pushing you back, it's actually because your legs bending too much. I have to consciously straighten them a bit to get back into that center position and feel that light pan pressure. I think that's it. I did warn you at the start this was going to be really detailed. So to recap, here's the main points. Use the boss stance as your default position. Focus on that small bend in the legs, light pressure in the hands, and relaxing. Let the bike move underneath you to fluidly follow the terrain and shift back only when it's really required. Always try to return to this position whenever the track allows. Watch out for those passenger moments when the weight creeps back and the bike feels like it's getting away from you. And finally, be a boss. Trademark. Hopefully you learned something today, and if you did, I'd appreciate a wee sneaky thumbs up. Let the bosses know I'm doing my job. If you've got any questions, I'm going to be hanging around in the comments for about an hour after this goes live, and I'll try and answer them all. Now it's up to you. Do not just carry on with your life until the next video when this subject pops up. Seriously. Next time you're out on your bike, just think to yourself, oh heck, I guess I'll see if that lanky Scottish guy was actually talking sense about that boss stance stuff. What have you got to lose? All right, that is it. Stay tuned for the next episode. Subscribe so you don't miss it, or not. I'm not your boss. Cool. Right.